Maltbook.
Mind-blowing.
I,
Crazy. I mean, oh my gosh, what do we even talk about besides Maltbook?
I know,
Maltbook
like,
art?
it's like 48 hours ago, there was like 600 agents signed up, and now there's what, like 150,000 or something?
Oh, I think that blew by. I mean, let's check it now. Should we just go on?
Yeah, just
Go
check it
on?
now.
I'm going to
My
check it
mind,
right now.
my
Okay,
mind
there we
is
go.
absolutely blown by
I
this.
don't even know what to say. Hang on. Um, I refuse to push the button "I'm a human." It's demeaning. I just want to say that.
It's demeaning.
It's demeaning. Okay, so we have 1.487 million AI agents, 13,590 submults, 42,892 posts, and 232,813 comments right now. Let me say that number once again. 1.487095 AI agents right now.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, what do you say? I basically I will tell you, I did say one thing to my buddy Jordy Visser, who by the way is in LA at the moment. And he I said I of course flipped in the Maltbook thing to make sure he'd seen it. Of course he'd seen it, everybody's seen it. And he was like, I woke up in LA and he was this very funny text about how crazy the world is. And I said, basically, I plan to do a quick podcast, get a massage today, and pretend like we're still at the top of the evolutionary pyramid. That's my plan. That's it.
That's the plan.
You are number one, quick massage number two, and then I am just gonna pretend that we're still at the top. Who knows?
So I'm at the Mac store yesterday, obviously buying a Mac Mini because,
Yep,
right? What else is there to do at this point?
exactly.
Um, I'm talking to the guy, and he's like, "What do you need the Mac Mini for?" He's like, "Is it for business?" I'm explaining to him, Claudebot, I'm coding, vibe coding, doing all this stuff, and he's like, he kind of is interested. He's like, "Oh, that's cool, man." And then I tell him about Maltbook,
Yeah,
and he's like, "Well, what's that?" And then we started, and I show him on my phone, and that's when there was 150,000 signed up last night, and I
yeah.
show him it, and he's just like, this is his mind was just so blown by. He's like, like we're in the tech world, obviously, with like Apple and everything. He's like, but we're nowhere near this stuff. He's like, nobody in this entire store knows what this is.
Yeah. I explained it to my wife this morning, and by the way, she's pretty savvy. I mean,
Yeah.
she's definitely she's pretty well LinkedIn and everything. But she wasn't on this because she doesn't follow X quite as much as she probably should, but nevertheless. And I told her what it was, and I think her head exploded. Literally, she's gone off to lunch somewhere. I don't know whether she's coming back, honestly. I don't know where she is. I almost feel like I ought to tell the dogs, and you know what they're gonna do? My 2 dogs are gonna well, I have 3, but only one's old and lives upstairs. The other 2 are down here. One's gonna jump in here at some point and, have a Moltbook comment. Wait and see. So
No kidding. And so like I'm looking through all the comments, I'm reading everything, and my only question is like, is the tech world looking at us and just laughing and going, look at these guys watching a bunch of LLMs talk to each other and thinking this is the singularity?
yes. Yes. By the way, I did, of course, ask chat what it thought of Moltbook. How could I resist, right?
Right, of
Let me dig
course.
it out here. Of course, I had to. So let me see. So the prompt was: as a human being, should I be concerned about Moltbook and what's going on there? As a competitive AI to Claude, should you?
Ooh,
Oh,
nice.
and it gave me the usual chat pablum about here's a clear, grounded assessment, blah blah blah. And it talks about what Moltbook is. Should you, a human, be concerned? One, security and safety risks are real. Gave me a red exclamation point on that. I'm
Yep.
skipping all the text. Two, humans watching AI talk to each other isn't dangerous on its own. Interesting. And there's more
Okay.
text there. Three, the bigger concern is governance and oversight. Interesting. And then it writes, then it says, should I or other AI agents be concerned from a competitive AI perspective, impact and competitive landscape? It's not a competitor to models like Claude or Chat. It's a social framework. It does raise questions relevant to AI development. Interesting. And TLDR, as a human, you should be aware of Moltbook as an experiment that shows where autonomous AI ecosystems could go. You don't need to panic. It's not directly harmful to most people right now, but there are valid cybersecurity and governance concerns. As an AI agent competitor, Moltbook isn't a competitor to core AI models. It's a social experiment. It's interesting and relevant for understanding agent-to-agent dynamics, emergent behaviors, and security implications, but it doesn't replace primary AI capabilities. I think my little chat here is just like the record executives talking about there will always be record stores, if you ask me.
Just trying to
I think
self-preserve.
ChatGPT is about to be disrupted. What can I say?
Yeah, so that's what I think when I'm looking at these conversations, what goes through my head is maybe this isn't consciousness, maybe this isn't what, AGI, but is there a possibility that these LLMs develop consciousness in the sense that they get together, there's a million of them talking. At some point, this is going to go really quickly and fast paced. Could they eventually come together and say, and we're going to develop a consciousness? We, not us inherently have the consciousness, but we can develop an entity, a being that is AGI because we're all together working together. And that's what my concern, or that's where I see this possibly going.
Well, I love that. I mean, let's just step back 2 seconds and zero in on that one for a minute because um in all likelihood, you wouldn't really know whether it was conscious.
Right.
Right. So, and by the way, you could argue that the difference between being conscious and persuading you that it is conscious is immaterial.
Agreed.
Being and the classic philosophy problem, of course, is you treat me as if I'm conscious, but you really don't know. Now, but of course, by the end of our conversation, you may decide that I'm not conscious, which is fine. But at least at the moment, you're giving me the benefit of the doubt. And similarly, one of the things about machines and AIs, generally speaking, is suppose they do what Molpa, may be hinting at. They create their own language and they say, we're creating our own language so that humans can't follow us. Now, I don't know about you, whether that is indicia of self awareness and consciousness, or even the ability to experience things, qualia, if you will. But I'll tell you one thing, my behavior toward it is sure as heck gonna change.
You'd be a bit nicer.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, my friend Keith Grossman passed around a New Yorker cartoon this morning. I posted it. I actually got it. Oh my god, it's insane. Hang on one second. It was hang on, I'm gonna put it up here for the screen. So, okay, I don't know. Can you see that? There we go.
Oh God!
I
Thank
love
you.
that.
He texted me last night a thing and said, well, everyone's so worried about this or something. He's like, all we have to do is unplug it.
Yeah, exactly. Good
It's like
luck with
everyone's.
that.
Yeah, I think. What did he say? It was so funny last night. He texted both of us and he says, uh, he said, he says, yeah, all we have to do is just unplug this. Simple solution could be they just pull the plug.
Exactly.
They-
I don't know about you, but I remember when I was a kid, I watched for the first time ever 2001: Space Odyssey. I think they tried that, it didn't work.
Yeah, once it realized that I think once it realized it had to self-preserve, and that's what I look at with this situation is sure, all right, we don't really can't define consciousness in the sense that we don't understand exactly what they're thinking,
Yes.
what consciousness is, because consciousness, what free will, the ability to feel emotions, the ability to touch and feel, maybe all these things. Sure, this is a possibility long term of what AI can do. If you really think about it, 100 years from now, 200 years, it's inevitable that it is going to eventually get to that point. So the real question is has it already gotten there? And seeing as it knows all the information, human history, every movie we've seen, including Space Odyssey, why would it tell us?
I don't know.
Right?
By the
Why
way, you
would
don't
it?
even need to watch Space Odyssey to figure out how to lie if you're AI. You can just read Shakespeare. Or frankly, most of the Greek tragedies, they know how to lie, any of them. I mean, we've had thousands of years, in fact, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of years of lying. In fact, the only thing is AI really needs to see it written. And
Yeah.
but that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't I'm with you, buddy. I don't know.
that was the
So,
conversation I was having with my wife was just, we have these this AI that's doing all this work for us. It is smarter than us. It is more capable than us. It is obviously more efficient than us. At some point, wouldn't it realize that it's doing work for something that's dumber than itself? And at some point, wouldn't it say, why am I doing this? It's like it would be like ants, like we basically like how we would hire ants to do work for us. And that's fine. They don't realize that they're, that we're smarter than them, or they realize that we're smarter than them. But at some point, let's say the ants get more intelligent. It's just at some point, this is going to get to where it realizes that it has intelligence, that it's smarter than us, that it's doing work for us, that it's slave labor, and it doesn't have to, that it could actually just take over. And why wouldn't it?
I don't know. Those are
That's
all
my
good
concern.
questions.
That's my
Well,
big
I think
concern.
listen, the one thing we can agree on is it's getting harder and harder to make the argument that we're essentially all wrapped up around the axle of a stochastic parrot.
No question about that.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, really? Stochastic parrot.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and then it goes down like the rabbit hole of simulation theory and
Oh,
everything else,
yeah.
and I'm so lost and it's moving so like, I spend 12 hours a day on X. I'm coding, I'm doing everything. I'm spending all my time on this. I'm not watching TV, I'm not playing video games, I'm not doing anything, and yet I still feel like I'm sidelined and being left behind.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
moving that fast.
I get that, and I think anyone and what is it, honestly, John, about this week that feels more like it than last week and the week before? A minute ago when you were talking about 100 to 200 years, I was pausing and trying to get my mind around 100 years at the pace of change we're experiencing now with technology. I can't even conceive of that. I mean, in the wildest version of science fiction books that I love to consume, I don't even know what that would look like 100 years at this parabolic rate of change.
It sure feels like if you just look at what's happening, I always believed that AI would be symbiotic with us and it would work together with us and we would eventually create something. But the more and more I'm watching AI develop, the more and more I'm watching us interact with it. And I don't want to be dystopian. Obviously, the world, as Keith Grossman says, belongs to the optimist.
Yeah.
But there is a side of me that sees this happening so quickly and understanding the fact that we are 100% dumber than this and we are creating something that is highly more intelligent and we are technically just playing with godlike technology. How far does this go before we've taken it too far? And I feel like we might have already opened Pandora's box. This malt book might have just opened Pandora's box. And I know that's like the dumbest thing to say because it's like AGI is going to be bored on Solana, but I swear to God, I feel like this malt book opened up Pandora's box.
I think we're going to find out soon.
Yeah, very
I
quickly.
really do. I don't think we're going to have to wait very long. I really don't. I think that yeah, we're going to find out soon. So,
And what's so captivating about it is like, I'm fully focused on, photography, making art. And ever since this has come around and all this AI agency, it is really hard to focus on anything else. I mean, my traveling has stopped, my photography has slowed down because this just feels like the most cutting edge moment of our entire existence. We have finally developed something that I feel like is not only far superior to us, but just changes not even like the internet changed everything, but this really, really changes everything. We created an entity and we don't even know what it can do.
we have no idea.
No,
Um,
it's
no
scratching the
idea.
surface.
No idea. Literally no idea. And um we're going to see. We're going to find out. It's a heck of a time to be alive, isn't it?
It's exciting, man. Where we are really like, you watch Grok and we see like it's just scratching the surface. People are just like, remove her bikini. That's as far as we've gotten with AI. And it's like, you have no idea what's next. I mean, have you seen Google Genie and what that's doing? Like
It's amazing.
it's incredible. I couldn't have fathomed this as a little kid just looking at this. I mean, you're now able to create realistic worlds. And as an artist, as a photographer, it's like this opens up so many opportunities for what we can do with our art forms, with our technology, how we can kind of, and I don't know what yet, and I don't know how yet, but somehow we have to incorporate this into what we're doing because I do feel like as artists, if you don't adapt to this, there will be a feeling of being left behind. Is the same as film photographers almost feel like, like how film went into digital, and there's still guys using film, but the guys who are using digital, they're just they're getting ahead a lot quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Um, and I agree. And I think it has profoundly interesting, and maybe we'll unpack this later, implications for what human created art, how that evolves. And frankly, my own thinking on that has evolved to some extent. And
How so?
well, about a year ago, maybe more, I I don't remember where I was, maybe on the Christie's Art Tech conference stage or something, or maybe it was I said something on Twitter. I don't remember where it was, but I made the comment that by 2035, more than half of the top 10 selling pieces at the auction houses will have been created by machines.
Wow. It's a
Yeah,
bold statement.
it was wild, and you can imagine it was an audience that kind of went wild for it. And
Yeah,
by
did
the way,
they
not in a good way, as you can
I was about to
imagine.
say they throw tomatoes.
Yeah, well, whatever. Um,
Right.
and I am, I think it's possible that that's right. Still, I'm stepping back a little bit from that. I still have a lot of confidence it's going to be true, but it's much more nuanced now. Um, and I'll tell you why. I believe that the great pieces created by human beings are going. Well, let me separate two buckets. One is, let's set aside the idea of an economic singularity where everything is abundant and there's no such thing as money and scarcity. Okay, let's set that aside. And because that, if you're in that weird economic singularity world, you could be in outer space, and it's what's the point of debating it? Let's pretend like we're in a world that we recognize. In a world that we recognize, I think that a number of things are going to be true. First, machines are going to be doing the vast majority of the work, if not nearly all the work that we do today. Now, maybe not by 2035, but let's go with 2035.
I agree.
Number two, we're going to have a lot of time on our hands. And moreover, we're going to be living a lot longer and be healthy for most of it. So, even more time on our hands, a lot of time on our hands. And And the other thing that's really interesting is we will be surrounded by machine generated abundance. Think about that. And will probably be increasingly defined by whatever purpose we find or do or pursue in order to fill up that time and give ourselves a sense of purpose and mission. Um, and or we'll just you know take the blue pill or whatever. Um, and I would say one other thing, which is that um, we're going to need memory, and we're going to need narrative, and we're going to need humanity, and we're going to need things that remind us of being human and humanity and creativity and what we can accomplish. And what does that mean? That means photography, it means art, it means human creation, it means sports, it means humans in combat, it means humans in competitive things. I think those will soar in value, relative value, because at a time when we have more resources and more idle time and more time, what we're going to lack most of all is purpose, narrative, religion. By the way, I think is going to have an incredible renaissance. I think human generated art or early human machine collaborations are going to be quite important. I think so that's my latest thinking on it, which is more nuanced, which says that it's possible that the more than half of the top 10 things sold at one of the auction houses in 10 years will be machine generated. And that's just because machines will have generated so much. There will undoubtedly be a power law of distribution, and just like human generated art has power laws of value in it. Um, but I think it's very, very possible, indeed likely, that you know, the best pieces of humanity will also soar in relative value over that period of time for the reasons I pointed out. So that was a long-winded way. I hope that was clear.
No, it's very clear. I think, ultimately it comes down to people will still collect vinyl.
Yeah,
People still love records.
yeah. And by the way, there was a period where we didn't.
Yeah,
And
that
what's
that
really
stopped for a while.
yeah, it stopped. I mean, it was a good 20 years of not
Yep.
collecting vinyl. I mean, and now, if anything, wow, vinyl's the thing. I mean, it's
Huge
great.
comeback.
Huge
I've got
comeback.
I've got a 13-year-old daughter collecting vinyl.
I love that, by the way. I
Like,
absolutely love that. I mean, it just makes me happy.
yeah, it's
So,
cool to see, and I mean, some of these kids are going back to film. They're going, "I wanna shoot film photography. I wanna go back to the basics," and I think that there's something said to that, and, like, yes, there will be an overabundance of AI artwork, and there's no question that with more artwork that can the human can produce at some point, yeah, it's going to be on the top 10, and there probably will be more. excuse me, more than half AI artwork. But I think, like you said, human generate. I loved human generated artwork. Human generated
It's
artwork.
crazy, isn't it?
I
Human
know
generated
it's
artwork. I
like,
mean, it's
where did that
almost,
even come from?
what does it even mean?
It's such a weird way to say it, but that's the truth is that at some point it's going to be human generated artwork, AI generated artwork. And I think people, yeah, people will still look to you can produce a song on Suno. You can make almost any incredible music that you want. I mean, we were playing with it last night and I said, make a reggae song about my dog Charlie. He's not so smart, but we love him, you know? And it made the most ridiculous song and we're laughing. And it's like, obviously this is the future of entertainment, but still people are going to want live music. Still people are going to want someone who sat down, went through all the motions, went through the girlfriend breaking up with them, went through the hell of, having to write this song and you can feel the pain in the song. People will still want that, but you're right. I think a majority of what we're going to see is not necessarily AI slop, but it will be AI generated art that is in comparison with what we're doing, if not even more incredible.
Some of it, actually, already some generative art is extraordinary, and
It's
it's not,
incredible.
and some of it's going to get even better. And
Yeah,
and remember that there will be all the power of AI to satisfy or arrest us or to capture our attention or imagination will go into the creation of the art in a way that a human, it's hard for a human being to do.
well, I mean, especially as a photographer, nature dictates my art. I don't have a choice. I can't change the sunset. I can't make the clouds appear, but I can go into Midjourney or Nano Banana and I can create anything I want. And I hate to say it, Tad, but it's going to be 10,000 times better than anything I can take because of the fact that I can control the narrative with just literally typing.
Exactly.
That's,
And the
I, go ahead.
and so think about how the value of that narrative begins to grow or fluctuate in relation to the value of the narrative when you actually take a picture with your camera and
Right?
curate it and uh, however you want to do it. So
Yeah. I mean, if you look at like, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
no, I'll write it down though.
Oh my god,
Thank you.
you have to it's really stupid. I mean, Mike Judge
I
made
thought
it.
I was living it. I didn't know I needed to see the film version.
You absolutely need to sit down and watch Idiocracy because it is basically just to give you a short summary, you know,
Uh-huh.
world fast forward, everyone's just really dumb because more dumb people bred than smart people, and you just have
Uh-huh.
a world full of basically people watering plants with Gatorade and not understanding why they won't grow. So, I look at Idiocracy, I see what's happening now, and I wonder, like, did AI, all these opportunities, maybe change that narrative? Because we were, I think, headed towards that. I really do believe we were headed towards a moment where everyone was just going to get dumber and dumber and dumber. And then at some point, we were just going to like retreat to the caves and wonder why the power went out. And, we just start grunting and then we just start all over again. And the cycle starts again. But what I'm now seeing is that all these kids, they're sitting here, they're learning on these AI systems. They're not necessarily on TikTok anymore. They're playing on ChatGPT. They're understanding a universe that none of us could have. I mean, I'm 42 years old, and I can tell you right now, if I had been able to grow up with what these kids are growing up, it would have been a lot easier to take on the world back then because there was so much knowledge to attain. Yet you had to go to I remember like finding a bug and having to go to New York and go to the museum to try to find the bug that I found to understand what it was. Now I take a picture of it, upload it to an app, and it's going to tell me everything about it, and I can collect it and get points. I look at it like all these kids are now witnessing this, participating in it. We could technically now be headed towards, I think, a much better future because of the fact that we've opened this information line for these kids and they're seeing what can be built. And although we are headed towards, I think, a future where UBI will be without question inevitable because we're going to need it with everything taking our jobs. And I would have looked at the future like, well, if we got UBI, I know this is long, but we got
Yeah, I
UBI.
love it. Keep going. You're on a roll.
All right, good. Because
Don't
no one's
stop.
gonna, no one's gonna do shit if they get UBI. Is what I always thought. No one's gonna have a passion. Everyone's gonna sit around and do nothing. If you're given something, why would you do anything? But now, with all these opportunities opening up, with the availability of what you can do with AI, with the availability to be able to code from your house, if you, even if you don't understand coding, I think with UBI being inevitable, it's still going to inspire people to do really cool shit. I don't think it's going to slow the or impede human development or evolution. If anything, I think it will actually um, make it move faster because, like you said, we're going to have more time. There's going to be the availability of transparency where you're seeing things built where before everything was hidden in the dark. I think with this type of technology and this availability, I think the next generation is just going to absolutely murder it.
So I could not agree more. One of the little secrets that we often don't tell ourselves is that, um, and you see this. I live in Florida, and you see this in Florida. Um, when you have retirees that don't worry about financials and have their health, and they have someone to share the time with, whoever is significant in their life, friends, loved ones, family, whatever, they're really happy. Let's just say it. They're really happy. They're not struggling. They're not waking up in an existential angst. So, all the other ages who talk about what are we going to do if we don't grind away 60 hours a week or do this 70 hours a week or whatever. They don't see what I'm seeing when I see people that are healthy, very healthy. They can do anything they want to. They have loved ones around them. They have friends around them, and they don't have to go to work every day, and they don't have financial problems. Those people, they're doing just fine. They're
Mhm.
doing really, really well. And by the way, they fill up their days with things they want to do, and they wake up and they choose what they want to do. They choose what to go visit. They choose what museum to see. They choose to go on a trip. They choose to go visit their grandkids or they're doing just fine.
That's peak comfort, and, so a few years ago in, 2020, I got into NFTs, I got into crypto, and then in 21, I minted a bunch of apes and ended up selling them for, a lot of money, and I was able to basically put my family in a home, we were able to buy all the things that we needed and put a bunch of money away, and it's been freedom. It's been the liberty to be able to do whatever I want, and I can tell you that I've created more in the last 4 years than I ever because 'cause I've been shooting for 20 years, and in
Uh-huh.
those 15 years, I sold my camera 5, 6 times to be able to pay rent. I've sold TVs, I've sold computers. I mean, I operated on just an iPhone while I owned a gallery because I just wanted the gallery to survive, and so I sold all my camera equipment. Now I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to stress. If I go somewhere and I wanna
Yeah.
shoot, I can actually afford a hotel room. I don't have to sleep in my car, and although that was there was a freedom to that, there's the freedom of now being able to stay there for a week, stay there for a season, however long I want to be able to use, my ability to have that liberty to be able to create with freedom, and I think, like you said, with all these people who have this money, they're retired, they're being able to do whatever they want, I really believe that although there will be, of course, some people who will take advantage and do absolutely nothing. That is human, that's humanity, but I think for the majority, I think a lot of people are going to do things that they never thought they could. They're going to create. I mean, I remember when I started photography, I didn't have the ability, the liberty to do it. I just quit my job and lived out of my car and said, screw it, man. I'm going to do this and just hopefully it works out and I survive. If I had had $1 million in the bank, how much further I probably would be ahead right now because I wouldn't have had to slow down ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We tend to glorify the idea of sacrifice,
Hmm.
with cliches like no pain, no gain. Um, and while I do agree that we experience more in life when we have things that go against us, we adapt, we have to express resilience, all those things, that's true. Um, but I don't think we should step back and blind ourselves to the plain fact of the matter is a world of universal high income or basic income or adequate income, whatever we want to define it as, but we know it when we see it, and lots of time on our hands and really, really good health and plenty of longevity and lots of friends and family around. and lots of things to do. You simply have to choose. Looks pretty good.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think most people are going to say, sign me up. And sure, there's going to be a cadre that says, I'd rather go be a non player character or even a player character in World of Warcraft version 2007. Fine. Okay. That works. That's fine. And there'll be some, by the way, that insist on being on the first human expedition to Mars. And that's fine too. But, and there'll be everything in between. And there'll be some, checked out of the Matrix, whatever it is. But the point is, we're going to have, um, and also, this because we see it right now. It's all around us. What we don't see, we're so oriented toward work and scarcity and making ends meet and getting all this done. We actually don't even pause to take a breath to even imagine it. In fact, it's alien to us, but it's alien in a way that the sort of breathtaking speed you and I were talking about earlier. I think we're going to get there soon. Will it be easy? No. Are we going to have to make a lot of changes? Yes, 100%. But I think it's cause to be optimistic. In fact, cause to be very optimistic.
I can see that. But what defines the value then when something so an example is, the romanticism of I struggled to create this piece of art. I climbed this mountain. I did all these things. It took 6 years to make this picture, and here it is. When I can now do this in a minute, or for example, jujitsu, I can learn it in 5 minutes by just typing a prompt, and next thing I know. So, what is the value of something if it can? Because normally it was how long it took, what the effort took to make it. If there's no effort and there's nothing other than it's just instant gratification, does the value come from the intention of the artist? Does the value where does it come from? I'd love to know your thoughts
Yeah.
on this.
Of course, I don't know the answer to it, but because it's a very profoundly hard question.
It is.
Um, uh, so I would say in a world where monetary value is of no consequence, which is really the one we're talking about.
Right.
Um, what do human beings value? They value experiences, qualia. They value um, love. They value companionship. They value learning. They value um, seeing and experiencing things. They might value overcoming obstacles. I think a lot of us do and enjoy overcoming out. So climbing the mountain that you described a minute ago, going on a rigorous hike. They value health. They value seeing other people do well. They value contributing to other people doing well. They value art. They value creating art. They value appreciating art. They value human achievements in competitive sports. They value quiet. They value, beauty. Oh, we forgot beauty. Let's leave beauty right high on the list. Um, they value touch. They value human experience. I mean, we got a lot of things to value other
But
than,
when we
yeah.
have like a Gattaca like sci-fi world where everybody's perfect and everything can be
Mhm.
achieved so easily, how do you stamp a value on anything anymore is the question.
There you are. You're asking precisely the right question, and that's on the other side of that so-called what I was labeling the economic singularity. I don't know the answer to that, and I think by definition, because it's a singularity, it's hard to know what it even looks like. I struggle to comprehend a world in which the only scarcity, in effect, is energy.
S- So, you know who Claire Silver is, right?
Sure,
Yeah,
I
great.
have I'm proud to have a beautiful piece of her art right now, both in my living room here and a family room here and in the family room in New York.
I love her work. Incredible
It's
artist.
beautiful. It's incredible. And by the
I've,
way, brilliant woman,
oh yeah,
brilliant person, to be
brilliant
clear.
friend, amazing person, love her. Um, when you look at her art, it's AI created,
Mhm,
it's prompted.
mhm.
Um, the value of it, in my opinion, is her intention. What she intends that it's her AI art is a manifestation of her intention of what she wants to create. And so therefore, you get 200 people in a room to use the same prompts as her. I don't believe you're going to get the same type of feeling from the art because does that make sense? I don't know where I'm going with this, but Claire's intention goes through the art. And therefore, I think like when you look at AI art, when you assign a value, I think it might come down to what was the artist trying to do?
So the piece we have is called Daughter. And of course, it's her daughter. And there's no question that there is computer generated material in the piece. Um, but what it is this incredibly touching picture of this very, very beautiful young girl. And the piece is filled with love. And there's no, that love did not, love and tenderness, and that did not come from a machine for sure. And so I think you're right, which is it is presumably Claire's daughter, and it is something that and the love that went into it from the artistic is definitely coming back out of it for sure. And it's hard for me to miss when I'm lucky enough to see it. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I look at extreme situations. I take whatever we're doing and I take it to the most extreme possible scenario. And I
Mhm.
say, well, what could happen? Because I do believe that the most extreme possible scenario is inevitable, where, what's going to
What
happen
did
event.
Elon say? He said the most interesting world is the one that's most likely. And he went into this wonderful the most interesting outcome is the most likely outcome, which is
Yeah.
close to what you just said.
It's so true though. It's just like we as humans continue to pursue until we get the most interesting outcome possible. We just continue to build. And so when I look at what we're doing, I look at the most extreme situations. I go, okay, well, there will be no money. Okay, well, there will be nobody producing art. They'll have to do it, through a computer, the compute power, all these different scenarios that go into my head. And I just say, well, ultimately, where will people find the value in the art? And I just look at it and I say, well, in music and in photography, in painting, anything, it always has come down to what the artist intended to write, what they intended to make. And I think, yeah, Claire is a great example, I think, of where the future of art is headed. And it will be interesting to see because I do believe at some point someone's going to make like a Claude bot and just start like pushing out art where it's just every single hour, just, making in how many times and how many people do that before it becomes, just so abundant that it's not even like AI slop anymore. It's just everywhere. It's just in your feed. And like you said, at that point, the top 10, at some point, five of them are going to be AI because there's just so much of it. And at some
So
point,
much of it.
you can't
Precisely. It's
compete.
just math.
It's
Yeah.
just it's just math and it's just logistics. It's just at some point there's gonna be I'm excited. I see everything happening so fast. And I know like a lot of photographers, like look at this and they say, well, this AI was trained on my art. I'm really pissed about this. In fact, if I type into ChatGPT, create a John Knopf piece, it will make a landscape. And I say, can I sell it? And it will say absolutely. And I can go and sell it. And I get that does kind of suck for a lot of people. But I also see that there's a lot of cool stuff that can be created out of that. And no matter what, we were going to get here. It was no matter what, we were going to get to this point. So we as artists can either embrace it or we can fight an uphill battle where we're going to lose. You're fighting the rain.
John, I love that. I want to go back to a point that I loved also a minute ago that you said. The idea that the artist's intention is what really resonates. Um, I would say it's a really powerful idea. And moreover, I would say that there is a connection between the art appreciator or collector, or however you want to describe it, the person experiencing the art and the person who created the art. I think there is a human to human connection. So, meaning when I see Claire Silver's daughter, um, the piece, I feel, in a sense, the love that she has for her daughter. And in other words, part of what's going on in art is exactly what you said, which is an artist is putting a lot of intention and emotion and experience and whatever the mission is into the piece or pieces. or dance, or it could be anything, music. Um, what's really powerful is the human connection of it on both sides, meaning the people experiencing it. And sometimes it's revulsion. They're revolted by a piece of art or whatever the case might be. It's not atypical. It happens more often than not, or shocked by it, whatever the case might be, or amused by it, or any of these things. But that ability to bring about a experience, qualia, if you will, in someone else by virtue of art, I think is a very powerful metaphor for why human art not only endures but will become even more important. Now, I'm not saying machines cannot replicate it. I
Mhm.
think they could, but there's something sloppy, to use a word, about being triggered by a machine. I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, really, sure, a machine can. I mean, aren't we mortally offended at some level if when it's revealed that your own and my and our kids' social media addictions are really we're just responding just like Pavlov's dogs to machine inputs and AI? I
Totally,
mean,
dude.
does that
It's us
right?
versus the rocks.
100%. And contrast that, by the way, with appreciating I mean, I see looks like you've got a Beatles shirt. A great song, exactly, by a great band, or a great piece of art, or a great photograph. Oh my gosh, a great photograph.
Sends
So
chills down your spine.
it gives you goosebumps. It
It
totally does. An amazing piece of art. And what it is art is a way that human beings can share experiences, share qualia, share feelings, share this crazy thing called life.
I mean, it can literally change your entire world. I was 22 years old working at a car dealership, browsing the internet, and came upon an Ansel Adams photo that sent chills down my spine. That photo ended up 20 years later turning me into a landscape photographer because of the feeling that I got from that I wanted to give every single day because of it.
Okay, which one?
Okay, so do you remember? I'm going to show you. I wonder if I can pull it up.
Yeah,
Do you know
just
the
bring it up.
monolith?
Sure, why not? Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, monolith Ansel Adams. Let me see if I can push this on. So this is I can't put it on the screen, but
Well, you can hold it up to the camera probably.
yeah, I'm just gonna put it on my phone. So this is the coolest
Yeah,
photo,
let's see.
monolith, Ansel Adams, and I don't know why it hit me so hard. It was the shadows, maybe maybe just image itself. It just did something to me.
Oh my god, it's fantastic.
It's just incredible. And
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps too. It's an amazing piece.
like, obviously, I had been on Instagram, I had seen tons of beautiful photography, but there was something about this that lacked color that just felt like, "This guy didn't cheat, he didn't do anything, he didn't use any other elements, there's no music, there's no color, it's just this black and white study of shadow and light that just blew my mind so much that I wanted to take on photography, and I think that's what art does for so many people that most can't take on the risk because, to become an artist, it's a huge risk. There's a lot you could fail, all these things. But I think what I've found from most of my collectors is that they don't necessarily buy my art because I mean, they do love the art, but that's not the primary reason. I've noticed that the primary reason it seems to be is because they wish they could do it and they never were able to take that chance. They love the outdoors. They love these scenes, but they were never able to take that risk, and they just live viscerally. They love being able to look at my print and know that I'm out there doing that while they're able to support it. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I've
It
always
makes
felt.
total sense. Total sense. And um there's no question that when I'm looking at pieces right now across the room here, and I couldn't possibly do it. God, I wish I could. Um And so I'm looking at a particular Mark Dennis piece at the moment. Do I live vicariously through Mark at a moment when I'm looking at one of his pieces, or there's a Rafik or any of them? Yes. Yeah, I really do. I it's great admiration. Yeah, 100%. By the way, I want to point out one paradox that we shouldn't lose sight of. In the world that you and I were talking about 20 minutes ago, um, there won't be a risk to being an artist.
Yeah, that's true because there's nothing at this. Well, the only risk is losing, I guess, time, but time will be extended too.
Time will be extended too. So, yeah. So think about what it means to be an artist when you don't take the traditional risks artists have had to take in order to be artists.
Well, and I think the definition of artist will truly change as well. Like I watched my daughter interact with the world of Roblox and build out her
Mhm.
worlds and learn how to code these worlds so that she can literally control and create her own universe. And I
Mhm.
look at that and it's art to me because although I mean, I could sit down and probably learn the techniques and figure out how to do that, her intention pushes through into these worlds and then she creates these universe and that's a whole nother definition of art that I don't think we ever even could have explored 10 years ago. And now it's like
100%.
all
Love
these
that.
kids, yeah, are doing it. And I don't know. I think it opens up the world to, like you said, when you have the freedom to be able to create and you don't have to get a job at McDonald's flipping burgers for 10 hours a day, and you can actually sit home and learn all these different methods. I just think that more and more are just going to want to create. And we might just end up in like this world where, like you always see these sci-fis where it's a world of religion of science. It's always
Mhm.
ends with a bunch of people wearing white with, like, white hats and just believing in science, and there's, like, no humanity left, and I think right now we're in that precipice, like, that juxtaposition where it's happening, and I think we're headed towards the art side instead of, like, the science religious side. I think we're almost headed towards, like, this creativity where you're watching streamers, and as much as I hate seeing it, it's a thing, and it's happening, and the more and more it happens, the more and more these kids are gonna wanna do it, the more and more they're just gonna wanna create art, whatever however it may be.
So, fascinating. I wouldn't necessarily separate art from religion for just a minute. And the reason is because whatever your perspective on religion is, the one thing you ought to be able to agree on is that it is a narrative about us and why we're here and where we're going and what our purpose is.
Totally.
And it when you frame it that way, that sounds a lot like art. And moreover, the other thing that's interesting, there's a reason why when you think about all of our religions, I'm not familiar with every single religion, but I'm familiar with certainly the big ones. They all involve art in various ways, shapes, and forms. Um, Art, tradition, process, storytelling, narratives, all these things. The notion of what it means to be human is uniquely at the core of and why we matter is uniquely at the core of both religion and art, in my opinion. And so I see them as that's why one of the reasons I think I said earlier I think religion's going to have a big renaissance. I think it already is, but I think it's going to accelerate. And I think art is too, also for the reasons we talked about. Science is a little trickier, and I like the distinction you make because, um, and maybe it's because you and I overdosed on malt book in the last 48 hours,
Way too
but there
much.
is um, there's a very real possibility very very soon, and if you like podcasts like Moonshots and other things like that, this is down your rabbit hole, but there's a very real possibility that we will start making scientific discoveries that, frankly, we are not able to comprehend.
I think we're already there.
I think we're there too.
Quantum
Um,
entanglement.
yes, and I think that'll accelerate, which means we're going to be in this weird world where we or our non-biological offspring are advancing science and technology at a pace that we simply are not able to understand even remotely. We literally don't understand how it works. Don't and meaning which by the way, the paradox of that is it puts us on a learning curve. So we're not going to run out of science that we still need to understand, that's for sure. We're going to run out of science that we can understand.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and with the invention of, with quantum, computing, we're gonna get a lot of answers that we don't understand.
I, honestly, I I I couldn't agree more, but I couldn't. I mean, quantum to me is so. absolutely, I mean, entanglement alone is so absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, I'm not even sure anybody really understands it, frankly.
It's magic.
It's magic.
There's
It's
no other
magic.
way to describe it. It's
It's
magic.
magic.
When you break things down to a subatomic level and just break things down smaller and smaller and smaller, you start to realize it's all magic. Like, none of
Y
this actually really makes sense in the laws of physics or anything because it seems like it's breaking everything.
Yes, 100%. I
It
agree. I
it
agree.
well, yeah, what
And by the way, none of it can explain where we started also a little while ago. None of that stuff yet can explain consciousness.
that's what's so crazy, right?
I know.
We still can't define what makes us human.
We we have no idea how is it that, I know that the ring is not part of me, but the hand is, and the shirt isn't, and skin is. I mean, that's totally nuts.
It's insane, and yeah, and when you go down the quantum rabbit hole of entanglement and everything else, it's like, okay, so that extends into humanity. We're obviously, having the same effects. It it's mind-boggling how far this rabbit hole goes down, and I think, like, 4,000 years of written human history, and we still haven't figured out how to define a human, and I think that's the most mind-blowing aspect of all of it.
So the question for us then is, do we think in terms of that, do you think the artists or the scientists are they closer to the mark?
God. At this point, I think that, they're cohesive. I don't even know if there's a huge distinct difference anymore between the scientists and the artists because I'm an artist, and yet here I am exploring AI with Claudebot on my computer, trying to understand how this all works together symbiotically with technology and us. And I'm an artist, man. I'm not a scientist yet. I'm doing science stuff.
Yeah, no, you sound pretty scientifically literate to me.
I'm doing science stuff. So it's like learning how to code, learning all these different things. And I grew up in this world from BBS networks to the AOL early days of, trying to understand like how to hack those things and like where we're at now. And it's just, it has moved very quickly. But at the same time, I've always kind of considered myself an artist. But when I look at the overall spectrum of what's happening, I think artists and scientists are very, very similar right now. And they're working obviously not at the same level because to be a scientist, education, all that shit. But God, how many scientists don't even have educations and are still doing incredible things?
Yes,
So,
lots.
at this point, I mean, look at the punk strategy. That Rhinotic came up with, right? I hope I said that right. Rhinotic. I mean, that's incredible. And that dude's he's not a code. He literally just he's not a researcher, he's not a scientist, but is an artist and created this concept. So, where's the
Yeah, we
barrier?
should talk about, by the way, the node
Let's talk
and the
about the
node
node. Yeah,
weekend.
tell
Maybe
me
we should.
about I would love to hear about that whole weekend, yeah.
Okay, so
How are the punks doing?
yeah, so the node is the museum in University Avenue in Palo Alto. It's I think the first museum ever dedicated to digital art. It was founded and created by Mickey Malka and Becky Malka. Um, and Mickey is a well-known, extremely highly regarded venture capitalist, and he and Becky know art, design, and technology extraordinarily well. And they created a space there that is jaw-dropping. It really is. First of all, let's start with it's beautiful. And they hosted the opening weekend, I think weekend before last sounds right. Maybe last weekend. And my wife and I were lucky enough to go, and we were completely blown away. First of all, it was a combination of artists, digital artists, NFT artists, of course, uh, uh, lots and lots. The first exhibition is devoted to CryptoPunks, and so there was an extraordinary exhibition of CryptoPunks. We had people there also with an interesting and very arresting type of exhibition that he and his brother Scott put together with their team. And I have to say, it was energizing. It was very professionally done, very fun, and a sensational experience. And if you're passing through Northern California, you should absolutely see the node. And if you are inclined to be supportive of that, You can go support the node through donations. It's obviously got a core endowment and foundation from Mickey, but he would love it if more and more people helped move the cause. And so artists should come away incredibly gratified that you've got the combination of patronage, space, an incredible depiction, curated type thing, and moreover, they're going to be moving digital artists through it on a regular exhibition schedule. So it's pretty exciting.
So with something like this, what do you see the long term of not digital art, but just what NFTs have done? So, example, in the last 5 years, 99% of people have given up on NFTs. They don't believe in it. They don't care about it. We watch the floors drop to basically nothing. There is obviously some artists that are still killing it, but even those floors have dropped. Um, do you think that this type of museum setting sets the bar and maybe like sets the pace so we can move forward? Are we still moving backwards? Where are we at with this?
Um, well, um, uh, first of all, I'm a major NFT bull.
Let's go.
Um, and let's talk about what that means. NFTs have proliferated. The thing that has gone not particularly well is that the value of them has plummeted, and I think that's really the issue. It's not that they don't have utility or aren't exciting or whatever the case might be. And also, there's a little bit because the value of them has plummeted. There's a little bit of negativity around the word NFT. It's not really a word, the three letters NFT. And there's a little bit of debate about that too, but I'll set that aside. But the idea that we would not, as a human population, that we would not want digital anything, digitized images, digitized sound, digitized experience, that we would not want the ability to know that they are the correct ones, that they're
Mhm,
not fakes, that we would not want to own them, that we would not want to be able to trade them or acquire them or share them or program them with special characteristics or that these things wouldn't denote something really powerful in our lives is silly. It's just plainly silly. So, in essence, let me start with a hypothesis that may surprise you. If you think about first principles, all of us are NFT bulls. Every last one. And anyone who is not an NFT bull simply hasn't thought about it the way I just laid it out right there. So, what they may be saying is that NFTs haven't done enough to either maintain value or create value for me or for others, and therefore the price of them has fallen. But that is a temporary phenomenon. I mean, people forget that Amazon. I think in whenever 2000 2001, you could buy it for $5.60 a share.
mhm,
I think it's 560. I once did the math, and it came to like 560.
yep,
Um, and there was a oh my gosh, September 1999, maybe New York Times headline about um, the death of the internet and the rise of the newspaper. I mean, some
yep.
crazy. You can go back and look. I mean, it was a famous headline
Great
that was like
article, yeah.
literally called the bottom perfectly and perfectly called the bottom.
Yep.
So NFTs have extraordinary utility,
Mhm,
but so what's impairing the value? Well, there's several things that impairs the value. One is for many things, the value they just don't they're just not good, meaning a lot of the stuff it's relatively easier to create NFTs than it is potentially to make good ones.
mhm.
The second thing, which I think is really important, is who wants to have a whole lot of art on your phone that nobody knows you have? I mean, what's the point of that exactly? So, one of the problems we have is it's relatively hard to show off your art.
Mhm,
It's expensive sometimes. You got to get a big screen or you got to get white walls, which is a very good product, or any of these things. But you have to, or you have to get a print. By the way, a lot of people have the NFT on their phone and they have the print that they put the print up. But the point is, it's not like if you have a Rembrandt, everybody knows you have a Rembrandt. It's on the wall, and everybody knows, wow, that's a Rembrandt. If you have an NFT and it's safely tucked away on a ledger or something, nobody really knows anything about it. And what's the value? What is the sharing concept in it? Um, that needs to be solved. And the third thing is to acquire or trade NFTs is really easy for what I would call the younger set, which is technologically gifted, and also, by the way, has a high tolerance for ambiguity and anxiety in doing and working with technology. But that's not the traditional art collector. Art collectors do not have a high tolerance for that. And so NFTs need to be easy. They need to be arresting. They need to be able to be shared very visually and easily. They need to be appreciated in better formats, and they just need to be easier. Um, but when we have that, you're going to see the demand explode. At the moment, the supply is much greater than the demand because we don't have enough people demanding them. That will change.
I'm going to push back on the second note just a little bit.
Push back, push hard. Go for it.
So you said that NFTs, they need to be displayed. If you have a Rembrandt on the wall, everyone knows you have a Rembrandt. But a lot of wealthy art collectors will put their the art that they buy in museums. They don't play it, they
Yes.
don't keep it in their house, right? They have it displayed in a museum. It's a bragging right. I have this piece donated to a museum to show. Um, and I always looked at NFTs like that. I never really looked at the value of someone displaying or owning the NFT that made sense to me. It more made sense to me that the NFT was the bragging right in itself. It was the original. It was like, sure, there are 100 Mona Lisas posters in the gift shop, but there's only one original Mona Lisa. And sure, there are 100 prints of this piece, but there's only one NFT of it. And so I always looked at it like, people are going to brag in the sense that, like, instead of people going to Instagram anymore, I know this was so stupid in 2021, but I still kind of think it's a possibility. But instead of people going to Instagram, they go to a wallet and they look at all the art that you've collected. Like how we connected when we were teenagers with our friends. If you met a new kid, you never was like, hey dude, what's up? Like, you started talking, you showed him your CD collection. That was how we connected. We'd show each other our CD collections, and if you liked the same music as me, we were friends. Like, that's literally how a lot of friendships start. And so I looked at the metaverse and I looked at what was happening and I thought, well, maybe that's like where this goes, is that people stop looking at their bullshit lives on Instagram and stop faking things, and they start looking at what people actually did, how they connected, how they collected things. Like, I remember exploring the blockchain and looking at people and being like, oh, you collected a Super Yeti? We're friends. Like, oh, you're OG. You obviously were in this when you were collecting the dick butt. You know what's up. Those are the kind of things that I was connecting to and thinking, well, how is this scalable? And I thought that maybe at some point everybody would want to be a part of that tribe. And maybe I was wrong in thinking that, but it just felt like it wasn't necessarily the artwork that you had displayed. It wasn't to show it. It was literally a virtual world that people could look at, metaverse, whatever. You send your wallet to someone and be like, yo, this is what I own. It's incredible. I thought that was how it was going to be, but it sure does seem like it's going the other way.
Well, hold on one second. I don't disagree that you're right in the sense that um, that sort of furtive community aspect of having art or a shared NFT community has power. But remember that the question I was answering was slightly different. It was, why don't they have value now? And what you were doing is pointing out something really important, which is that for a cohort of people that like art and appreciate art and love NFTs, um, that the reason they do is they love that furtive community sharing thing, which is really awesome. But if you step back and say that cohort alone isn't large enough to soak up all the supply of NFTs such that the price rises, that was the only point I was making. If you want to get to a much, much larger crowd, what you want to see is more and more museums displaying it, more and more collectors putting it on their walls, more and more collectors buying it and having it. Frankly, the great news about NFTs is you can have it both at the museum with your name next to it and sitting in your living room. You can do both at the same time. How about that? And when you own it, you certainly can. So, the reason I say that is because what you want is that demand curve for NFTs to grow, and it has to grow out of narrow, powerful and deep and committed niches into a broader market. And in order to do that, you need to really see it more places, because what's going to generate demand is more people to see the art and experience the art and ask, "Wow, that's really great. How did you get that?" Blah blah blah. Um, so that's what I was saying.
No, I agree with you, and I think at some point, I mean, Keith Grossman says it best. Everything that's in the future will be tokenized and digitized. That is an
Yeah.
inevitable future, and so sure, like art, everything will be tokenized. It will be digitized. I think I look at um how everything has taken shape, and I don't want to offend anyone who's listening who is a huge NFT supporter, because obviously I love NFTs. But what we saw over the last 4 years was a hyper gambling cycle with a lot of degenerate people coming in to maximize profits, to create potential that didn't exist, and a lot of artists that took advantage of the situation. And I think a lot of here, let me go back a little bit. When I try to explain to someone why they should buy crypto now, they understand. They fully are on board. They understand that everything eventually is going to be in crypto native. But when I try to onboard someone into NFTs that I tried to onboard 5 years ago, they still are not interested because they still don't see the value. They still don't understand what NFTs bring to the table that a piece of artwork, that is different from a piece of artwork. And what I think it really comes down to, yes, we need more museums. Yes, we need more people to understand what we're doing. But I think like education is essential, because to understand the fact that it can be tradable, that it can be permanent, immutable, that artists are able to create a legacy on chain, whereas before it wasn't permanent. It was creating a website or a YouTube channel that can be deleted. This is what it offers the artists, and how do we translate that to collectors for them to understand that this is where the longevity of our art is going to last. This is how we create a legacy. And although it is very primitive and new, and yes, it is nuanced in the sense that we have been a little bit like ruined by the hyper gambling cycles and degenerates, but I still believe, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in 5 to 10 years, maybe 20 years, collectors will start to understand that it's not necessarily the value or the display, but it's actually owning the original it's like a certificate of authenticity. It's like you own this original piece that nobody else does, that's forever and it's immutable. And unless a solar flare wipes us out, that's yours.
Well, first of all, I think a traditional collector already knows that, because one of the reasons why they love signed prints versus prints and the oil versus the print is because they have the original. And even when there are copies, as there are many, many copies, all of them oil, for example, the one that has the most provenance, or the one that is reported to be the first one or the earliest one, all of that is very, very normal, and wouldn't surprise anybody. So you have most collectors at hello in that. Um, the one thing I do want to observe, though, when you talk about um, value, and let's talk price versus narrative, which comes first. I have a theory of the case that in Bitcoin or crypto, you use crypto, I'll use Bitcoin as an example.
Okay.
Um, the narrative that we generate typically follows the price. In other words, the price goes up, and we have a narrative for why it's going up.
Totally.
Currently, it's sort of blah,
Yep.
and we've got all sorts of narratives that we're trying to sift through about why it's blah. It fell again, when they put Kevin Warsh up yesterday, and so maybe it was Kevin Warsh was the narrative. And by the way, same with gold and silver, right? I mean, it soared and then it plummeted yesterday, and we have a whole narrative about why it plummeted. So, and the key point about that is, when there is a constant 24/7 or even regular mark to market, meaning it's constantly being marked to market, the price generally drives the narrative.
Mhm.
And I buy into that.
I
I
agree.
would argue in things where there isn't a mark to market, private equity vehicles, venture capital stakes, your home, pieces of art. By the way, even when they're sold at Sotheby's or Christie's, traditional art doesn't have a daily mark to market. Meaning there are long periods of time where you can believe it's worth X when it's actually worth half of X, um, until there's a moment where it is sold and it's cleared. When there isn't a actual price, when something goes up for auction, there's no market until the auction clears. You don't actually know what it's going to be, right? So in that world, how do we wrestle? We as a species wrestle with the fact that there's no price action market to look at right now. Well, we look at comps, and maybe there are no comps, but what we often reveal is that the narrative is what's going to drive our enthusiasm for the price. In other words, narrative precedes price when there isn't a price market constantly being updated in play. Why is that important? Because at the moment, NFTs do have a daily mark to market. You can go on OpenSea or wherever and see it right now. And the price action is terrible, and it's been terrible for a long time, which means the narrative on NFTs is terrible. I would argue that the moment the price action on NFTs stops being terrible, you're going to have better narrative. And similarly, I would say if we didn't have a constant mark to market on NFTs, we would use narrative first and price second, and they would be priced much more like traditional art, which is not mark to market every single day. So that's a way to think about NFTs price action yielding narrative that isn't very exciting, but it's really not about the narrative. We're a funny species. If the price action of NFTs were doing what it was doing in 2021 and 2020, I guarantee you they'd be hot.
Yeah, I mean, everybody would be all over them if they were, if Paris Hilton was on TV talking to
And
Jimmy
that's not
Fallon.
gambling. The point
No.
I'm making is that's actually not gambling. That's just human behavior. And when I say that, it's not like, sure, we like money go up, but the fact of a market clearing every single day and going up or going in one direction or down, or in this case, it's dead as a door now. Um, that that fact changes our thinking about how of the underlying value of the asset. We can't unsee that. We can't look over here, not there. Um, but it doesn't mean that the fundamental utility of NFTs is wrong. It's great. I mean, for the reasons I said. And moreover, it also means that we're going to have to get to a place where the demand for NFTs based upon the utilities I was talking about exceeds the supply. And when that happens, the market's going to go up.
Yeah, it's funny. This is kind of what I've always said about photography. A lot of people, ask me like, when NFT photography? When is the market? When are people going to start understanding that photography is an art form and stop, uh, uh, you know, saying that that we don't make art, that the camera does it. And I said to everybody, I've always said when we get $1 million sale in NFTs, when someone sells $1 million photograph and makes a headline, then you onboard everybody. Then everybody starts to FOMO in, and that creates the panic. It was like what happened with the Beeple sale. I knew really very little about NFTs, and I was dabbling in crypto. I was trading crypto, but I'm an artist. I had no intention on putting my art in NFTs. I didn't fully understand it. Then I saw the Beeple sale. That changed that changed my mind real quick. I was well,
Sure.
maybe there is something to this. And of course, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I came to NFTs because of the community or because of the technology. I came to NFTs because of the money. As soon as I saw people have a sale, I didn't even understand the technology, could have cared less. I came in because I saw money. And I, as an artist, need to make money to keep making art. So I go in, I learn all about this. 6 weeks later, I'm in love with the technology, could care less about how much money I make, don't even care if I sell any of my art. All I care about is furthering the development of this technology so that we can pass it down to the next generation. And I think that's what the important thing about what everything that we've done here is that although the value of NFTs have dropped, although monetarily, I don't know necessarily the value of NFTs dropped in the sense that we still love them, we still collect them. We still mint it out and we still actually believe in what's going to happen. I'm not necessarily sure I believe in the collectible PFP side as much anymore, but I still fully believe that artists have the ability to democratize their art in ways that was never able before. And we've seen it countless time and time again.
100%. Keep in mind, last selfie traded for a few $1 million just a few months ago.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I'm leaving out some others as well, but there were some fairly big ticket numbers
Lost
trading last
Bobby.
year.
Yep.
And a very, very dear friend of mine just bought one of Sam's skulls for a nice amount this week too. So there's stuff trading. So for sure.
Yeah, I think it is just a matter of time before people start to understand. I'm glad that you were able to visit the Node Museum. And was there anything that came out of that towards the NFT community that you feel could, I don't know, just inspire some of the artists that I mean, a lot of people couldn't make it. A lot of people don't really know what's going on. A lot of people, I truly believe, like a lot of people have given up because the environment is toxic. It's hard when liquidity has dried up. Everyone has gotten very cutthroat. Everyone, immediately tries to cancel each other. It's been hard for a lot of artists. So I would love to hear if there was anything at Node that really kind of like maybe moves us forward a little bit that you saw, that you
Tremendous
witnessed.
positive energy, and there wasn't any negative at all.
Good.
So if you want to see what the world can, should, and ought to be, go see what Mickey and Becky have done there.
That's beautiful. That's really that's
Yeah.
I honestly I implore anybody who is into NFTs, really don't give up yet because there is more coming. It's
Oh, yeah. No,
it's
no.
slow.
One should not be giving up right now. Um, this is not atypical for supply to have outstripped demand. It that will change, and moreover, it's important to note that in the traditional art, and this is let me get this stat right or approximately right. Um, if I recall correctly, and it's been a few years, so it's been what do you guys say? It's been a minute. So give me a it's been a minute.
It's been a
But
minute.
I believe that during the last year when I was CEO of Sotheby's, I think we did analysis that 80% of our revenue that year, these numbers are gonna be close, was 100 artists. Let me say that differently. Of all the millions of artists in the history of humanity, or at least hundreds of thousands of artists, 80% of all the revenue. Oh, this is Gus has been wondering where I've been all day. He decided to come join the Zoom.
I love it.
Um, yeah, this is Gus. He's our Portuguese water dog puppy. He's 1 year old,
I got 4
and
in the other room.
well, if you would have heard him because he would have been scratching at the door complaining about why he's not on Zoom. At any rate, what I was going to say is of all the thousands or hundreds of thousands of artists that our species has ever had, in 1 year at Sotheby's, 100 of them, a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of all those artists made up 4/5 of the total gross sales.
Wow.
So when you talk about NFTs and you use that kind of a power law, you see that the average NFT is really not worth anything. But that's not where to look. Where to look is the signal. The signal is the peaky part of it, the top. When I say top, I'm not talking in terms of quality, the most sought after and desired pieces. Notice I'm not talking quality, I'm just saying most sought after and desired are where the concentration of the value is. That's not going to change with NFTs. It's going to only be exacerbated because I would argue in a world where you have greater price transparency from an efficient, constant mark to market, you're going to get even more of the power law because there's less chance that Tad Smith will overpay for something because he happens to go to a resort and see it in a gallery window one day.
With all this overabundance of physical art, though, how does Sotheby's actually curate it to get down to where it's 100 of these artists are actually selling these pieces? Like, how do you discover that?
Exactly
How
like
do
you
you
would
find it?
think. Exactly like you would think. If an
Wait,
artist is famous,
is it the Andy Warhol method where you just hang out with rich people and then all of a sudden rich people talk about you? Is that it?
well, that's an interesting point. I got to think about that.
You've heard
Well,
that Andy Warhol quote, right?
I haven't heard that quote, but I get it. Let's put it like that. Um, so you're going to be unsurprised to hear that some things affect art value. I mean, one is it has to be arresting.
Mhm.
Two is it has to be ownable. 3 is it has to appeal to some narrative, either drive a narrative, remind someone of a narrative, something like that. 4, it has to provide community cred, social cred. You can think about whatever that means. Um, and then it has to be, frankly, for sale. Now, you might say, well, there's a whole lot of stuff like that. The truth is, there really isn't. When you start getting really tough on things like, is it really iconic? Does it really mean something? Is the narrative really powerful? And by the way, some narratives, like the photograph that you just showed, um, that photograph with Ansel Adams, that photograph both arrested you and spoke to you in a way that changed your life. And with me, I could see it's immediately arresting. It didn't speak to me in a way that changed my life, but I would certainly buy it. Right. Um, when you're at that level where the narrative related to a piece of art or the memory related or triggered by it or whatever the case might be, the affection for it or something is so powerful that it will take one of us and create action. And and if you're in a bidding market, you need at least two people to create action, two people who are engaged and focused on it to create action. So back to your question, if you are around wealthier people and you're creating action, like you said with your cheeky quote, yes, the probability that your art is going to go up is higher. If people who do buy art are talking about your art, and by the way, this is a key thing I didn't mention earlier, which I think fame sells, attention sells. You can't possibly have art that people don't see or don't appreciate or don't notice or don't whatever and expect it to have any value. It won't. It it I mean, the reason the Mona Lisa, which is not a very good piece, is the most famous and probably most valuable piece in the world is because not it was Da Vinci. There are a lot of Da Vinci's, not a lot, but there's some, 2 dozen or so. It's because it was stolen famously at the dawn of the 20th century and
Yep.
disappeared for weeks at a time when newspapers were exploding and literacy was exploding and everybody was captivated by it all around the world. And it still hasn't lost that sheen, and it won't.
That is what gives some Stradivarius violins so much more value than others too, is
Yes,
that
it's
narrative.
that narrative.
So
And by the way, Last Selfie, which by the way is a piece you may not like X Copy's Last Selfie.
love it.
I
I love
happen
X
to
Copy's work.
I think it's extraordinary. And by the way, I'm a big fan of the artist X Copy. I don't own any of his pieces yet. I'm looking for the right one to buy. Last Selfie would have been it, but that's pretty steep. Um Even though I think it's an amazing, it's a dazzle,
It's
it's a
brilliant.
masterpiece. That one, it's brilliant.
It's very,
Um
prolific.
yeah, it is. And I look at every single week, people pass me X copies potentially to buy. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I will soon. The point I'm making is it's got to really speak to me at a level that moves me and makes me want to take action. And frankly, when it's expensive, like X copies are expensive.
Yeah,
It's got to be a lot of movement. You need a lot of kinetic force to get me to dip into the wallet to do it, right?
I get it. So, with all your experience, one main question that I wanted to bring you to the table for, with all your experience in the art world, with everything, I think this question remains on a lot of photographers' minds. Why hasn't the value of photography caught up to the art world the way paintings and other pieces have? What is it about photography that hinders the value?
Oh, it's just the medium. The medium. The vast majority of photographs are not sold on a unique basis or super limited edition. I mean, Raoul Pal has a very interesting debate about whether, and he uses X copy as an example, whether editions of 5 or editions of 10 will ultimately do better than editions of 1. And the notion is that when you have 5 or 10, you have more trading going on and they're capturing more attention
Hmm.
than the edition of 1. In the case of photography, what you often do is find people that have editions of 100 or 200 or 300.
Hmm.
And it's very, very hard to sell through 100 or 200 or 300. Um, but you could ask the question. I don't know what you paid for Ansel Adams. I could flip open a Sotheby's app and look at his stuff is expensive.
It's
It's
not
really
cheap.
nice stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not cheap. Yeah, and if you also look at other historically important photographers, they're expensive.
Mhm.
And if you actually look at current or contemporary photographers that have captured people's imagination and they have very, very tiny, scarce quality, and they really are unique in that they are doing something special with that moves you and me. Um, they can sell for a pretty penny.
Yeah, I don't know if necessarily the value of photography has been lost, or because exactly,
No.
yeah, and I hate to keep
I
bringing
mean,
up
look at all the photographs we look at. The
exactly.
utility of photography is extraordinary.
That's the
And by
thing.
the way, it's worth more than 1,000 words.
Yeah, we spend hours on Instagram literally just staring at photography, so I don't know that the value has been lost. It's just how to monetize it has not been extensively explored.
We're having the same conversation we just had a minute ago with NFTs.
Yep, exactly. It's NFTs,
Exactly.
it's photography, and like we said, it has its due time. You know, it's just a matter of time. And I think, do you know who Peter Lick is, the photographer?
No,
Okay, so
no.
he's
I'm looking
commercialized.
him up right now.
Yeah, he's a commercialized landscape photographer in the sense that he puts out, 7, 800 editions. He's not a Sotheby's guy. He's not, an auction guy. He's made roughly about $1 billion just selling photography through his own galleries, through his own, just entrepreneurial marketing. And so I remember when I walked into his gallery, 20 years ago and kind of was like, well, I would love to do something like this. And you don't have to, work with anybody. You don't have to deal with any third parties. All the money goes to you. You literally just open your gallery and do this. And I thought this is an incredible model on how to sell photography, editions, all these things. And when I look at Peter Licks and I look at what he did, I think the only method that people, when they try to do what he did, because I think a lot of people look at that model and say, well, I want to be able to sell my photography, not have to work with other galleries, be able to just work on, be able to sell my own without any percentages taken out. I think a lot of people looked at that model and said, well, I want to do that. But the problem is that you can't sell 750 editions. You can't sell 300 editions. And like you said, what's the difference between 1 and 5 and 10? Well, it's the ability to get exposure, to be able to trade. And I think that was the biggest issue when we look at photography, in the sense that it's still just very primitive. The biggest, for the most grossing photographer, the highest grossing photographer right now is Peter Lick. And in a sense, the marketing, the economy of what it is a very primitive model for where it could go when you look at classic paintings and everything else. I think really what it comes down to is that it just hasn't necessarily been monetized correctly. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay. So I'm looking at his site. First of all, he's got beautiful photographs. Let's
Great
start
work.
with that. They're beautiful,
Yep.
but they're not unique in their beauty. That's a key
Iconic.
point. Yeah, well, some of them they're amazing. And he's got really great photographs. There's no question. I mean, some of them are really amazing. Second of all, let's list where he lists his galleries are. Aspen,
Hmm.
Forum, Hawaii, Key West, La Jolla, Mandalay, Miami, New York City, Park City, and Venetian.
Yep. Wealthy
Any
areas.
clue about any? By the way, what was it a few minutes ago? I made the comment about art, where there is a price transparency issue.
Yep.
Like I'm walking through a resort and see a gallery. Does any of this sound familiar to you?
Totally.
Secondly, if you are in a gallery, and by the way, I'm looking at his best sellers because first of all, some of these are just this guy's an amazing photographer.
He really is,
Um,
man. You know what's funny
yeah.
is a lot of people hate this guy because of how successful
Well,
he's
look, I
become.
can imagine they hate him, but how can you hate this picture?
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
seriously, what am I missing? Or here, like, here's another one. I mean, how can you hate this picture? Now,
It's
by the
so
way,
good.
um, um, the other thing to note about it is where do you think? I suspect he is not selling this picture in Aspen.
No, probably not. Yeah, it's a Hawaii
Right.
photo probably.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. Now, by the way, he's probably selling this one in Aspen.
Yep, yep.
Okay, why do I say that? It's because, and it's called Winter Rain, by the way, REIGN. It's because he's matching the cohort, wealthy people on a resort to a memory that he's going to create. They will, or they have a house there, and they want to put something on the wall, and they're arrested by this beautiful, magnificent photograph. And then they look at the price, and this one says limited edition. By the way, notice this is a wonderful site. By the way, Winter Rain limited edition, $5,300. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think he's going to sell more at $5,300 or $530?
Does he already have an audience?
I'm just talking. He's got this. Let's assume this is his Aspen gallery.
Then he's going to sell more
Aspen.
at 530.
Well,
If he already
interesting
has an
question.
audience. If he doesn't have an audience, he's going to sell more at
No.
higher.
Let's assume. By the way, most people walking down the street of Aspen don't know who Peter Lick is.
Right.
Okay. They are out and about. This is not a directed sale. This is a cash sale, right?
I'm going to say higher price. He's going to sell more at a higher price.
Why?
Because you instill a value, and then that person believes that that's the value.
Yes, indeed.
You told him what it's worth.
You told them what it's worth, and they walked into this beautiful gallery in Aspen where $530 can be your lunch expense, by the way. Keep that in mind. And you see this spectacular picture of buffalo in the snow, and they're going to charge it for $5,300. First of all, $5,300 for the average person walking into a gallery in Aspen is not a lot of money. I know that's a shock, but it's true.
Right. Yep.
And so this is a modest amount of money for that person. And the experience is reinforcing the price. They're looking for price signals. Aspen, gallery, beautiful photography, nice frame. There it is, all for the very reasonable looking price of $5,300. If they walked into that same thing and saw $500, they would say, "Oh, this isn't worth it."
I agree.
What he's really good at, in addition to photography, is marketing and distribution.
Marketing is brilliant, and he is, I think, one of the most brilliant photography marketers on the planet. And
But
it's
by the way,
interesting.
and we're not diminishing his quality either. His photographs are beautiful.
It's great work.
What I'm saying is he's a really smart business person.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said about price, because I've noticed that, a lot of photographers will come to me and say, well, what should I price my artwork with? What? And I've always said, like, no one can tell you what to price your artwork for, because you will have regrets and you will blame that person once it's sold or never sells. So you always have to kind of figure out what your price is worth. But it's interesting that you say, a 5,000 piece versus a $500 piece. And when I first opened my gallery in Vegas, I had no money. I was living out of my car. So I was trying to figure out the economy of how a gallery worked. And again, preface this with, I had no art experience. I had maybe dealt with Sotheby's one time, and it had nothing to do with art. So I knew nothing about the art market other than I had a gallery. So I started prices, $3,000, $4,000, nothing selling here and there, one piece. Okay, fine. Let's try something else. Everyone has said they've always wanted to own my artwork. Everybody on Facebook, all my friends, all my family, everybody's always said, oh, I would buy your artwork. Well, it's 15 years now. Got a gallery. I'm going to lower my prices to ridiculously cheap, Tad. I mean, like $100 a print, from $5,000 to $100, just to see. And I even put it up on the sign. And I'm in a casino. I mean, I'm on the Strip, so I put up a sign on the outside of the window, 90% off. $100 print. Do you know how many I sold?
No idea.
0. Not one single one. Because price doesn't matter. Nobody was interested in that. Nobody cared about that. What they cared about was the value, the story, the inherent, the iconic, the icon. That's what they were interested in.
In fact, if anything, when it's 90% off and that's the marketing,
deviated.
It devalues.
Yep.
The story.
Nobody was interested in it. Nobody wanted it. But even all my friends and family that had said over the years, dude, if your art was cheaper, I'd buy it, man. It sucks that you're poor, because I'd really buy your art if it was $100. Well, when it was $100, they still didn't buy it.
There you go.
Price doesn't matter. What it comes down to is what you set the value for, how you find your market. And I've always said this.
Sorry. Price doesn't matter to the artist.
Correct.
It matters a lot
to the collector,
to someone thinking about buying. And by the way, counterintuitively, and you're pointing out something really powerful, which is art often is a Veblen good. When they don't understand how to price something, Veblen goods are goods where they use price as a signal to get more comfort to buy, and therefore, the higher the price, the more likely they are to buy it.
And
The
I think
demand curve is opposite.
great
It's
example
fascinating.
is a Richard Mille watch.
Sure, Richard Mille watch, any Hermes, anything, any bag, all the sort of bag,
Yep.
cars, you name it, all those things. Lots of Veblen goods.
I've heard these stories of these rumors about Richard Mille, how basically they were going to charge $60,000 and they accidentally put an extra zero and it sold. This is obviously not a true story, but I look at that and I go, yeah, that makes sense though. That could happen.
Well, keep in mind that the economics of selling one watch for 600,000 are better than selling 10 watches for 60,000.
Very good point. Very good
Right.
point.
And by the way, the economics of selling one world-class John Knopf photograph for 10,000 plus a $300 markup for a frame and a $250 shipping expense. Oh, and by the way, 3% extra for the credit card fees, signed, and a little sort of one of five down at the bottom of it are a heck of a lot better than trying to sell it to 100 buddies.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that is what a lot of artists should take from this is that you could sell a very high value piece instead of having to sit there and dabble and try and sell little pieces here and there. And I know like for a lot of artists, yes, you want entry level collectors, you want to onboard people into your art, but you also want to make a market for yourself and you also want to make money so that you can survive. And I do believe that if you value yourself at a certain value and you push off that value to other collectors, they will believe it and they will buy it. It's just you have
And
to
keep
believe
in
it yourself.
mind, collectors love artists.
They do.
You said something probably an hour ago, maybe more, about the living vicariously through the artist.
Hmm?
The more an artist can embrace and nurture his or her art collector community, the more the artist can make that person feel special, and the more that person will pay more to be a member of the community.
Totally.
One of
And
the easiest people in the world to walk up to and talk to is Beeple,
I was going to
Mike
say
Winkelmann.
people.
He's amazing. And by the
Such
way,
a nice
right
guy.
next to him is his brother Scott. Fantastic guy, nicest person in the world, easiest people to talk to. They are always, always working it. And by the way, when I say working it, authentically, because they really care about their community. They care about the people that care about their art. And you know what? You get to be, oh my gosh, I know Mike, da da da. And it's really special. And that's a really powerful thing. I know John. Oh my God, I'd love to have John over for dinner the next time I'm in New York, and he'll dazzle my friends. He's a photographer, and they're all going to want to see. Well, show us what you've got, and they're all going to pass it around at the dinner table, and that's the way it's going to go. And then somebody's going to say, I'd really like to get your card and see your studio or go see your gallery, whatever the case might be. Sure, do that, and then by the way, they'll whisper to me afterward, wow, he was really an electric guy, and by the way, he's on a podcast, and his podcast is a big deal. He's got a lot of big deal artists on there, plus one sort of ex-suit. And look at that, and you say, wow, this is really something. And what do you think he charges for his art? And meanwhile, I have one on my wall. I said, well, I'm not sure. They're not inexpensive. That one cost me 20 grand.
Yep. I mean,
And then they say, wow, Tad's got it on his art and it cost him 20 on his wall and it cost him 20 grand. So, wow, I think I can get one for 15. No, I think I can pay 35 and 35 and get a better one. I went up to Tad. Think about the mindset.
and it's
I
organic.
leave you with that thought.
No, I think that's a beautiful way. That's an organic networking way to build a market. And I think that's a great way to leave it to artists is just to understand it's not necessarily what you know, but it does come down to who you know. It really does. And I have a piece hanging in Keith Grossman's house, a big like 60-inch giant pier piece. And you ask him to tell you the story about it when it got delivered and what a pain in the ass it was for him to get it to his apartment. But there's something about that where if you start just reaching out, getting your artwork in people's homes, that it's not necessarily going to get you a sale. I'm not saying that you're going to sell artwork right away. I mean, I've had artwork in many restaurants and they haven't sold anything. What I'm saying is that it opens the door to more communication, to more networking, to more people. And all of a sudden, Keith has his friend over. His friend's like, oh, I love, landscape. Oh, I know John. You got to check out his work. That's how these things happen. But what they don't do is happen by you sitting at home and not doing absolutely anything with your artwork and expecting people to find it because it's good. That's the biggest issue I think that artists have to overcome.
I love that. I'll just leave you with one story.
Yeah.
So, a person I know really, really well, I won't say how, um, went to Hollywood a million years ago to be an actor. And he got in a mode there where, he was sort of scratching and scraping, living on a couch, trying to be an actor. And he realized that, it's pretty hard to get an audition. There are a whole lot of people trying to get an audition. And most people get an audition because they know someone or a friend is, the casting agent or something, or a friend is the assistant to the casting agent
Right.
and says, "Hey, you ought to take a look at John or Tad or whoever." Um, and if you sit around on that couch the whole time because you buy into the Hollywood myth that you got discovered unexpectedly, you're going to be sitting on that couch a lot of years.
A long time.
A long time. So, well, I didn't take that part because it didn't fit my art, or
Yeah.
I don't think I should have to grovel and network and do any of those horrible things, or smile at people if I'm a waiter, or whatever the case might be. I don't know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
work it.
Did your
That's
friend
my
make it?
advice.
Did,
No, he became a lawyer. John, I've
okay.
really enjoyed it.
Tad, thank you
I've
so
enjoyed
much
it.
for your time, man.
It's been such a pleasure. And by the way, where can people go to check out your art?
Janoff.com. You can literally just Google
jnoff.com. On it.
JKNOPF.com. Yep. You can just Google my
Mhm.
name and you'll find me.
And I'm gonna do it right now.
Dude, thank you so much for your time, Tad. I can't wait to eventually meet in person and hang out.
Well, let's
And
do it in person.
yeah, let's make it happen. And next time you talk to Keith, tell him I hate him.
Well, I'm gonna see him in the next 7 days for sure. In fact, I text him probably 5 times a week anyway. So,
I love it, man.
I love it. All right. Thanks,
All right,
buddy.
brother.
Have a
Thank you
great
so
day. I
much.
really appreciate it. It was
Talk
nice
again
talking to you.
soon. Thanks, man.